How's that? All right, cool. Yep, go ahead and start it.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Today is Tuesday, October 4th, 2022. Roland Martin Unfiltered, broadcasting live from New York City, right here on the Black Star Network. On today's show, the Supreme Court hears oral arguments in a critical case out of Alabama that could determine the future of the Voting Rights Act. We'll show you exactly the questioning from Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson. She did not wait to show her expertise and show why she was absolutely the right choice to be on the United States Supreme Court. Also on today's show, a black man walking his dogs has filed a lawsuit against the U.S. Park Service for wrongful arrest. He and his attorney will join us on the show for an update. Civil rights attorney Ben Crump will be dropping by to give us the latest on the trial of a former Texas police officer who shot an unarmed black woman in Baytown, Texas. That trial starts this week. Also, I'm sure you heard about that silly fool Kanye West, Candace, Owens. They really get on my damn nerves. Talking about White Lives Matter, but also attacking Black Lives Matter. We'll be joined by Melina Abdullah, who leads Black Lives Matter grassroots movement, to talk about this particular issue. Also, in our marketplace segment, two brothers are taking their place in the natural products industry. The owners of Naturade will explain how diet-related illnesses plague their family members and led them into the health and wellness field, folks. And also, conservative radio talk show host Mark Levin still has not answered our invitation to appear on my show. He said I wouldn't invite him. Why is Mark punking out? And Herschel Walker caused a stir last night when the Daily Beast reported he paid for a former girlfriend's abortion. He's now being called out by his son. Republicans in Georgia are freaking out. Nationally, they're standing with him, but they're afraid he may be losing ground, especially among conservative white women. We'll break it down as well. It is time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the biz, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, rolling with Roland now. He's funky, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
Folks, a crucial U.S. Supreme Court case or arguments took place today that deals with the possibility of adding a new black congressional district in Alabama. The challenge was with regards to the Voting Rights Act. The Supreme Court previously has curtailed the Voting Rights Act, namely Section 5. Now, this particular case today deals with Section 2. Conservatives hold a 63 majority on the Supreme Court, and the issue of race was front and center in today's court hearing. We've heard from Justices Alito, Amy Coney Barrett, Clarence Thomas said little. Justice Neil Gorsuch didn't say much at all, but it also was a debut of new Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, and it did not take long for her to assert herself and to show her expertise on the court, especially regarding this case and the history of the 14th Amendment.
I don't think we can assume that just because race is taken into account, that necessarily creates an equal protection problem, because I understood that we looked at the history and traditions of the Constitution, at what the framers and the founders thought about. And when I drilled down to that level of analysis, it became clear to me that the framers themselves adopted the Equal Protection Clause, the 14th Amendment, the 15th Amendment in a race-conscious way. That they were, in fact, trying to ensure that people who had been discriminated against, the freedmen, during the Reconstruction period, were actually brought equal to everyone else in the society. So I looked at the report that was submitted by the Joint Committee on Reconstruction, which drafted the 14th Amendment. And that report says that the entire point of the amendment was to secure rights of the freed former slaves. The legislator who introduced that amendment said that, quote, unless the Constitution should restrain them, those states will all, I fear, keep up this discrimination and crush to death the hated freedmen. That's not a race-neutral or race-blind idea in terms of the remedy. And even more than that, I don't think that the historical record establishes that the founders believed that race neutrality or race blindness was required, right? They drafted the Civil Rights Act of 1866, which specifically stated that citizens would have the same civil rights as enjoyed by white citizens. That's the point of that act, to make sure that the other citizens, the black citizens, would have the same as the white citizens. So they recognized that there was unequal treatment, that people based on their race were being treated unequally. And importantly, when there was a concern that the Civil Rights Act wouldn't have a constitutional foundation, that's when the 14th Amendment came into play. It was drafted to give a foundational, a constitutional foundation for a piece of legislation that was designed to make people who had less opportunity and less rights equal to white citizens. So with that as the framing in the background, I'm trying to understand your position that Section 2, which by its plain text is doing that same thing, is saying you need to identify people in this community who have less opportunity and less ability to participate and ensure that that's remedied, right? It's a race-conscious effort, as you have indicated. I'm trying to understand why that violates the 14th Amendment, given the history and background of the 14th Amendment.
Supreme Court Justice Elena Kagan, one of the liberal members of the court, talked about the precedent of the Supreme Court in previous voting rights cases.
You know, this is an important statute. It's one of the great achievements of American democracy, to achieve equal political opportunities regardless of race, to ensure that African Americans could have as much political power as white Americans could. That's a pretty big deal, and it was strengthened, this statute, in 1982 when this court interpreted it too narrowly for Congress's taste, and Congress said, no, we didn't mean that at all, and made this into a results test. Now, in recent years, this statute has fared not well in this court. Shelby County looks at Section 5, and it says, no, Section 5, we don't need that anymore. And one of the things it says is we have Section 2. And then Brnovich comes along, and that's a Section 2 case, and the court says, you know what, Section 2, they're really dilution claims. You know, this is a denial claim, and so we can construe that very narrowly. But of course, there's just all these cases that are dilution claims. That's really what Section 2 is about. And now here we are, Section 2 is a dilution claim. This, you know, the classic Section 2 dilution claim. And you're asking us essentially to cut back substantially on our 40 years of precedent and to make this too extremely difficult to prevail on. So what's left?
All right, folks, that was Supreme Court Justice Elena Kagan. Now, remember, Alabama was defending this law. Here's some of what was stated by the defense.
They argued that Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act requires Alabama to replace its map with a racially gerrymandered plan, maximizing the number of majority-minority districts. But Section 2 requires an electoral process equally open to all, not one that guarantees maximum political success for some over others. Section 2 does not and cannot obligate Alabama to abandon district lines enveloping the undisputed, long-standing community of interest in the Gulf to be replaced by district lines dividing black and white with such racial precision that Alabama could never have constitutionally drawn those lines in the first place. Yet that is what Alabama has been commanded to do here, redraw its districts to subordinate traditional districting principles to race. The only way to add a second majority-minority district to Alabama's plan is to make race the non-negotiable criterion. Plaintiffs' illustrative plans prove the point. They offer only one way to get that second majority black district: split Mobile County and divide the Gulf by race. Their new versions of Districts 1 and 2 then stretch the width of the state to group together black voters from disparate areas as far west as Mobile and as far east as the Georgia border. The district court relied on these outlier plans to invalidate the state's neutrally drawn map, and that was legal error. Requiring states to scrap neutral plans in favor of plans drawn on account of race sets Section 2 at war with itself and with the Constitution. The court should make clear that if a state's plan is the product of the state's neutral districting principles, The plan is equally open to all voters. Because Alabama's 2021 plan is such a plan, plaintiffs' claims fail. I welcome the court's questions.
What would you use as a comparator? I assume that your problem is that the comparator here was had race as non-negotiable. What would you use as a comparator, even if you thought that there might be some vote dilution problems with your plan?
I think the plan that would be the adequate comparator would be one that respects all of our traditional districting principles as much as our own map, but then has some different sort of racial outcome, similar to what the court has proposed in Cromartie 2, for example. That sort of map can actually show that there's a problem with our map. But if you are discriminating in favor of one racial group, then that map cannot show that our map was discriminating against that group. It's a flawed control.
Well, don't you think there's an overall problem with, in these dilution cases, of determining at the beginning what the comparator should be?
Yes, Your Honor. I think, as this court noted, both in the Holder v. Hall plurality and in Brnovich, benchmarks are critical in any Section 2 case. And we've proposed a benchmark to the court. Plaintiffs have not proposed any benchmark other than perhaps maximization or proportionality. But of course, Section 2 rejects a proportionality baseline, and this court has wisely rejected maximization and proportionality because they lead to constitutional problems.
Do you agree that the benchmark you propose has never been recognized by this court as the benchmark that's appropriate in these kinds of cases?
I don't think so, Justice Kagan. First, I mean, going back to Jingles, I think the benchmark there, even for multi-member districts, was neutrally drawn single-member districts, not racially gerrymandered single-member districts. And then when you continue—
Of course, you're requiring that there be that kind of benchmark. The question is not whether it's permissible. You are requiring that there be a race-neutral benchmark. And I'm asking whether that requirement has ever been stated in our precedents.
I think that's what Bush v. Vera, what Abrams, and what LULAC were all pushing towards when they said you must account for traditional districting principles. I don't know why you would even account for them, except that if a plaintiff's failure to account for them in their map, if plaintiffs fail to account for them in their map, then their map can't really shed any light on whether there's a problem.
I ask because what strikes me about this case is that under our precedent, it's kind of a slam dunk. If you just take our existing precedent the way it is, and the three judges below all found this. The three judges below said, this is an easy case. It's not one of the hard ones. It's not one of the boundary line cases. It was clear that the plaintiff satisfied the Jingles preconditions. And past that, you know, you're looking at a state where there are 27% of the population is African American, but only one of 7 districts, where there is incredible racially polarized voting, where there is a long history of racial discrimination in the state. Put all that together, and it seems clear that under our existing precedents, the inquiry is complete in just the way that the court below found. And, you know, it seems to me that you're coming here, and it's totally your right to do it, but really saying change the way we look at Section 2 and its application.
Folks, joining us right now is Elie Mystal. He is the justice correspondent for The Nation. Glad to have you back on the show, Elie. Look, this is a crucial, crucial case. You have conservatives who desperately want to gut the Voting Rights Act. Clarence Thomas will love nothing better than to get rid of it. Your assessment, you listened to the entire 60 minutes or so, your assessment of what you heard today.
Yeah, they actually went 2 hours today. So let's start with what is really at issue here. The Voting Rights Act, Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, says that it's illegal to discriminate in voting on the basis of race. That seems very simple. But how do you prove that discrimination has taken place? How do you prove it in the context of a racial gerrymander? How can you actually make the case under Section 2 that this gerrymander is too racist to be allowed? Because it's obviously racist. Like, that actually wasn't really what was at issue today at court. Alabama, as you heard Justice Kagan say, Alabama has one majority-minority district. That's 14% of its one out of 7. That's 14% of its congressional districts. Alabama, black people in Alabama make up 27% of the population. The most obvious thing would be to give 2 majority-minority black districts in Alabama. That would be 28% of their congressional districts. The fact that Alabama wouldn't do that is obviously racially biased, so much so that the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, with 2 Trump judges on it, said that, yeah, this is obviously racist. Alabama has to do better. So what's really at issue in the court is how to prove that what Alabama was doing was in fact racist beyond the numbers. Now, over the course of the 2 hours, you saw kind of a split. There were 3 justices, I'd say, Roberts, Barrett, and Kavanaugh, who seemed to want to say that the real problem is that drawing this second majority-minority district would involve a sweeping across the state of Alabama east to west, because that's where the black people live. Roland, I know you know where the black belt is in this country. It sweeps from west to east, from about East Texas all the way up to coastal Virginia, right? So catching that sweep across the Alabama, essentially the Alabama Republicans are arguing that's too long of a district. I find that intellectually unpersuasive, but that's their argument. Too long to not be racist, right? The other 3 justices, Alito, Thomas, and Gorsuch, who remained silent during the entire hearing, they seem to favor an approach that suggests that you can only prove that a gerrymander is racist is if you can put up an alternative map that would end up with more black representation without telling the computer where the black people live. They were saying that you needed a race-neutral map, but their definition of race-neutral involves becoming blind to the realities of where black people live. And so it's like if the computer randomly, with no racial information, comes up with a district that's with a map that has more black representation, well, maybe then you can challenge it under Section 2. But if you tell the computer, hey, this is where black people live, give me a map with 2 black districts, no, they say, that you cannot use to prove a violation of Section 2. And that's where the cleave really was at the court today amongst the conservatives, and we'll see which side wins. If Alito's side wins, that will basically mean that nobody can effectively challenge a racist gerrymander under Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act.
And that really is the fundamental case. I did find it quite interesting, Ellie, in listening to some of the testimony, to hear them say, oh, no, the computer doesn't factor in race. And the attorney said, oh, yes, it does. Because it's what you input into the computer. The computer doesn't just work on its own. You can get a certain result based upon how you program it.
Right, and if I tell the computer to be stupid, guess what? The computer will be stupid. One really important factor, for instance, that you saw a little bit in the sound that you played. The white Republicans, they were super protective of the Gulf Coast, weren't they? I mean, I think you guys probably heard that, right? The Gulf Coast, that is a predominantly white area. That area, they don't want to be cracked. They don't want to break up the predominantly white Gulf Coast area. So instead of breaking that up, they're choosing to split up the black belt that runs west to east across Alabama. So they've split the black belt into, I believe, 5 different congressional districts, whereas they've left the Gulf Coast into its own congressional district. So when you hear the Alabama man saying, oh, well, it has to respect our traditional ways of districting, understand that those traditional ways are in fact racist. You know, understand when he says that, and you didn't play this part, but he says like, well, you know, we have to look at where the rivers run. Well, understand that black people live on this side of the river or that side because of where they were allowed to buy homes during a period of redlining, when insurance companies wouldn't give them mortgage opportunities on the wrong side of the river. Now, during oral arguments, I thought brilliantly, Ketanji Brown Jackson made all of these points during oral arguments. I mean, to quote the man from the song, Ketanji Brown Jackson, she ready for y'all. Like, she came to play on her first days of the court. The clip that you played of her earlier, talking about the Civil Rights Act of 1866, man, Roland, I wrote about that in my book. And to kind of hear a Supreme Court justice make an argument that I've made in my writings was like super gratifying for me. She is on it in terms of calling out these conservatives on their racist BS. The problem is that she, along with Justice Elena Kagan, who you played, and Justice Sotomayor, who asked another one of the best questions, really that point about the Gulf Coast, that was Sotomayor's questions. These three women, they are in the minority, and they will not be able, I don't think, to influence the majority outcome in this case.
The thing that you talked about, Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, first day, she did not come to play. I mean, she brought the heat on day one.
She's been absolutely brilliant so far in her questioning. And just like, take this bit, right? Think about it this way. You heard her in the clip that you played, Roland. She said what the framers intended with the 14th and 15th Amendments. When have you heard the framers to be talking about the people who wrote the Reconstruction Amendments as opposed to the white slavers who wrote the original Constitution? Like, when have you heard that switch? That is what a person like Ketanji Brown Jackson brings to the court, that different perspective, that actually if we're going to make an originalist argument, that argument that you played from her, that was fundamentally an originalist argument. Arguably, Antonin Scalia could have made that argument, but you see how she flipped it. She talked about the framers in terms of the people who wrote the Reconstruction Amendments, the amendments that were written specifically, as she put it, in a race-conscious way to give rights and responsibilities to the freed men and women post the Civil War. She flipped it to talk about the framers in that way, as opposed to talk about the founders who protected slavery in their original conception of the Constitution. These kinds of subtle intellectual shifts. On her first day yesterday, she, instead of talking about, it was an issue about the Clean Water Act, and instead of talking about what Thomas Jefferson or James Madison might have thought about clean water, she asked, what did Congress think about the Clean Water Act when they wrote it? So again, she's actually being very textualist on the slide, but she's being textualist in the right way. She's being textualist in the modern way. She's talking about what did the people who wrote our current laws think about how they should be applied, not what long dead white folks thought about in the 18th century.
Obviously, no one can predict what a Supreme Court will do, but it is fair to say the votes are there on the conservative side to absolutely go further, to gut the Voting Rights Act.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, like I said, the Republican, the racist gerrymander in Alabama is going to win. The Republican position is going to win 6-3. This ain't a fairy tale. They're winning this argument. The question is how. And the how matters, because if they win it on the argument that putting the black belt into one district is just too long, while that sounds stupid and intellectually is stupid, it at least allows for a future where perhaps some other racist gerrymander in some other state coming down the pipe can still be challenged under Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. If they do it in the other way, the most extreme way, the way that says that you can only challenge a racist gerrymander if you can feed garbage into a computer and have it randomly poop out a great result. Like if you take that approach, then it's very hard to see how anybody in the future would ever have the ability to effectively challenge a racist gerrymander in front of the Supreme Court. So yes, the conservatives are going to win, most likely. Yes, the Republicans have the vote to do what they want, but how they go about doing it, how they go about making Alabama win is still critically important.
Ellie Mistel, we certainly appreciate it, man. Thanks for breaking it down for us.
Thank you so much for having me, Roland. Have a nice show.
Thank you, folks. The Milligan in this case is named for Evan Milligan. He is from Alabama. He is executive director for Alabama Forward. He joins us right now on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Evan, glad to have you on the show. Just give us your take of being in that courtroom, listening to what was discussed today regarding this case.
Sure. Today was interesting. I didn't expect that the state of Alabama's arguments would receive the amount of scrutiny that they did, and I don't really know how to read that in terms of looking forward towards what the court's opinion will be on the case. But it wasn't lost on me or others among the plaintiffs that it seemed like there were several justices who said some of the state of Alabama's arguments were a little bit too far even for them, and this would be some of the conservative justices. So we'll have to see where they land, but it was definitely really, really, really encouraging to see Justice Brown Jackson and sort of her historical context for the Reconstruction Amendments and really just walking the court through that history. It was amazing to witness that.
It is always difficult to predict what justices are going to do, but the bottom line is, had you and others not filed this lawsuit, then the Republicans in Alabama could have just stayed where they are. And so this is why court challenges matter, why civil rights attorneys matter, to fight for our rights in the court system.
Absolutely. And it was it was an honor to partner with the Legal Defense Fund, given their history in this country of civil rights advocacy, as well as working with the ACLU Alabama, the other lawyers that work with us. And for us, this case is really about telling the story of our families and our traditions in the Black Belt. Civil rights advocacy, leadership development, those are traditions. Out of that, that history of advocacy, we saw the work that led up to Bloody Sunday and then the Selma to Montgomery March, which really laid the case for the Voting Rights Act. And to be here today in 2022, coming out of those same traditions, out of those same communities, back in D.C. telling this story or connected to lawyers who are telling this story, it really feels like being a part of a tradition. And we want to be sure to honor the agency of our people by not only being hopeful about the court's ruling, but also looking into our own agency as advocates and as citizens of this country, and really looking at, what is going to ensure permanent voting rights protection for as many Americans as possible. And for us, that leads towards one of two places, or both. One is passage of the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, and the second is really looking at a 28th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. And both of those are uphill battles. Obviously, the constitutional amendment even more so than federal legislation. But those are things that, in our network of civic engagement tables and people's assemblies and the groups that we work with on the ground, we really are putting our heads together and thinking about the next year of building some foundational work, collaboration among our movements to build towards those two outcomes.
All right, Evan Milligan. We surely appreciate it, man. Thank you so very much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Mr. Martin.
All right, take care. Going to bring in my panel right now. Joining us is Joe Richardson, civil rights attorney, Michael Brown, former chair of the DNC Finance Committee, also Teresa Lundy, principal founder, TML Communications. Joe, I want to start with you. Again, the point there that I made about why we have to have the level of activism from our attorneys. Look, the battles that we see, the streets matter, the courts matter, the halls of state legislatures and Congress matters as well. You've got to have all of them working in concert to ensure that we are going to maintain our rights, our voting strength, because the reality is Republicans in Alabama, they want to make sure that there's only one black district because they want to keep 6 white members of Congress from their delegation. They do not want Democrats being able to pick up a seat there.
No doubt about it, Roland. And you have 27% black representation in the state of Alabama. It seemed to make sense that there would be at least 2 black seats. And this is why it's really important in our work and even in my work that we coordinate. We talk about what's going on and pay attention to what's going on the legislative side. Because even while we try to plug a hole, try to fix a system and better a system that is not perfect, we're still in the well trying these cases, going in front of judges, taking, like Justice Jackson did today, their words, the things that they've said, the things that are historically there. Most conservative folks, lawyers, would not have been able to quote you or didn't want to quote you what Justice Jackson said today. We take that, remind them of this is why the 14th Amendment was passed. It was absolutely race conscious to hold on to, during Reconstruction, the changes that were supposed to be made. So there has to be coordination between litigation. That is a battle line. That is a battleground. The appeals courts, absolutely. And then what goes on the legislative side, which is why all of us were at CBC last week. So you want them all to work together. It's frustrating for sure, understanding what's going on and seeing what's going on, because as much as the justice did today and talked about, and she was on her gig the first day, unlike Justice Thomas not speaking literally for years, it's still out of her hands because of the numbers. But should that actually reflect the will of the people? No. We're a lot closer than that, than the numbers on the Supreme Court would suggest, but that's why we have to coordinate and move forward, try everything, make it work together, and do what we can until we get over.
Michael, again, I talk all the time why voting matters, why using your power matters. We are seeing the results of a 6-3 conservative bent on the Supreme Court. They are the final arbiter of laws. And this is also, but unless Congress decides to actually pass the For the People Act and the John Lewis Act. And so there are people, I get people on my social media timelines going, well, man, I don't see this voting thing. Again, I cannot stress enough to folks how you have to connect the dots between voting, between electing people who are more likely to stand with us, and then being able to get resources brought back to our communities based upon who is in elected office.
You're Roland, you're right, and it's so difficult and frustrating, and I'm sure you've come across the same folks that all of us have, where people say, oh, my vote doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether I vote or not. And this is a clear illustration why it does. And these actual decisions, no matter how great Justice Jackson was, and she's always been a tremendous justice. Everyone's correct. She came in ready to work, but she's always been that way. But as wonderful as she is, as great as Justice Kagan is, and the other wonderful justices on the left, you're right. The numbers, it just doesn't matter, because elections have consequences. And because folks felt like in 2016, I just don't like you. I don't like Hillary or Trump, so I'm just going to stay at home. Well, now you see the results of that. But it goes back even further, Roland. We can go back to President Clinton, who, as you know, I'm a huge supporter of. President Clinton obviously had the White House, had the House and the Senate, and did not make voting rights permanent. President Obama, in his first term, had the Senate and the House and did not make voting rights permanent. And President Biden, as you know, who taught me in law school, who I am a fierce supporter of, also had the House and the Senate in his first term and did not make voting rights permanent. So not only do elections have consequences, but also if it's folks on our side that we don't hold accountable and make them handle their business, then you have state legislator bodies that are doing what they can do to overturn the will of the people after an election if they don't like the results. So there's so many different pieces of this, and the Supreme Court right now, because the numbers are what the numbers are, people should not be crying over spilt milk. You need to get out and vote. Your vote does matter.
Teresa, this is why I say you cannot just depend upon the courts. When you have the power, you must use it to make sure you are putting a legal victory into law. That's what Democrats should have done, not on this issue, but also Roe v. Wade.
Yeah, so absolutely right. When it comes time for us to, as Democrats to actually be in power, the understanding is that we utilize the resources that is in our arsenal to not only make sure that elections matter, but the individuals that is representing our interests are aligned and will speak to our issues for these lifetime appointments. I think it's very imperative, and I think, the Democratic Party has obviously seen the challenges, but also the wins that come from having a Supreme Court justice that, is intelligent, that is willing to work on behalf of the American people, that is willing to utilize the Constitution in the best interest. And I think they're starting to put some resources behind that. But again, you have to also, to your point earlier, is also making sure that when you do have the power, that you're also utilizing that power when necessary, just like Mitch McConnell did. And so, I think this is a lesson learned, but I don't feel like this is the last lesson that needs to be learned. I think this is an opportunity for us to, and I think more people have really been paying attention to the Supreme Court and has been allowing themselves to really understand the process. And thus, when it comes to Election Day in November, they'll start making those decisions that really impact their lives.
Well, certainly, oral arguments are over. Now we'll wait for the Supreme Court's decision. Normally that takes several months. And so we'll see what they decide. Going to a break. When we come back, we'll talk to a D.C. man just walking his dogs. He gets accosted by U.S. Park Police. He is now suing. He and his attorney will join us next right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Don't forget, folks, if you want to support us in what we do, download the Black Star Network app. Available on all platforms: Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. Also, join our Bring the Funk fan club, where every dollar you give goes to support this show. Send your check and money order to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. PayPal, Cash App, $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. And don't forget to get your copy of my book, White Fear, How the Brown of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds. I am here in New York City on a media tour. Did the Breakfast Club today. The interview will air tomorrow, also on WBLS. I'll be doing Sway's show tomorrow on Sirius XM and several others. You can get the book at numerous places. Also, you can order through your favorite Black-owned bookstore. I'll be right back.
When we invest in ourselves, our glow, our vision, our vibe, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
On a next, A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie. Staying balanced is tough enough with the normal day-to-day stuff going on. But what happens when we get the unexpected? It may come crashing down through a bad diagnosis for either you or a loved one.
My son, he actually was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and it came at a very challenging time in my life. I had a lot going on with starting a new business.
How to cope and even stay balanced when even the walls are crashing in. That's on the next A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie, here at Black Star Network.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Hey, I'm Donnie Simpson.
What's up? I'm Lance Gross, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
man walking his dogs in Northwest D.C. gets stopped by U.S. Park Police, falsely arrests. He's now suing them for their aggressive actions. Jonathan McKinney, as I said, was walking when a man approached him. Not knowing the man was a plainclothes police officer, McKinney ran. Who the hell wouldn't? Some guy just rolls up on you. 3 officers chased McKinney to a fence and hit him with 3 metallic tasers. He was taken to the hospital to remove the 3 metallic tasers from his lower back, right leg, inner thigh, and right leg shin. McKinney's charges assaulting the officers and resisting arrest got dropped the next day. Jonathan McKinney joins us right now along with attorney Donald Temple. Glad to have both of you on the show. I mean, the thing here, Jonathan, that's crazy, it's real simple. Here you are walking, dude walks up to you, plain clothes, you don't know who the hell he is, so you take off. I'm trying to understand why that's suspicious.
It's not suspicious at all. It shouldn't be suspicious at all, because I was just running my business that I've been running for 5 years. I'm a young entrepreneur. I'm 31 years old. I live in this community. I've been doing this for 5 years now. So it's very disturbing that an individual, a white male, can come up to any black person just minding their own business, and that black person can end up being accosted, and it could have life-changing effects for that person for the rest of their lives. It's just a horrific situation, and so we're pressing charges, me and my attorney, Donald Temple, and we're looking for...
So, Jonathan, when he came up to you, what did he say?
He said, how you doing? In kind of an aggressive manner.
And so how was he dressed?
He was in plain clothes. He was in a T-shirt and shorts.
So guy in a T-shirt and shorts comes up to you asking how you are doing, and you're like, I don't know who the hell this guy is. I don't know what his intentions are for me. I'm going to get away.
Exactly. So at the time, I'm playing an app on my phone called Pokemon Go. And so after he says, how you doing, I basically just say, don't talk to me. I wasn't aggressive at all. I walk up a few places, continuing to look at my phone, and then I just feel his presence. He's still staring at the back of my head. So I'm like, okay, let me get out the park, as soon as possible. And as I go to exit the park, he turns again and he says, this is a public park. I only said, how you doing? I can talk to you. And at that point, I'm completely weirded out. This is a strange white male. I mean, he could be anybody. So I'm not really trying to have a conversation with him. I leave the park, and then at that moment, a squad car comes out, and a police officer jumps out and grabs me with both his hands, and my phone goes flying into the road. So I go to retrieve my phone, and they start to pursue me, like at full speed. So they chase me to a fence, and that's where they tased me in my back while my back was turned.
Donald, here's what I don't understand. Common sense. First of all, it doesn't matter if this is a public park. Okay, you don't have to entertain anybody who walks up to you and start talking to you. And so, what rationale did they actually give for even stopping your client?
Roland, I hope you can hear me. That you hit the nail on the head. Police don't have a right to merely stop or arrest someone just because. And in this particular situation, Jonathan had finished walking the dog. He's a dog walker. He's walking through the park he walks through 6 times a day. Strange white guy, about 6'4", standing in the park, shorts and T-shirt, is scoping Jonathan out. Jonathan avoids him, but we know what can happen when nobody's around. Jonathan continues to walk away, and ultimately, as he exits the park, this guy stops. He's there in front of the path that John's walking on. And John walks around him and exits the park. The guy has essentially, Roland, called the police. And the police arrive on the scene and accost John as if he committed a crime. And that's where the story really takes off, because John, as he's explained, he drops his phone and then he runs to a short distance. He doesn't know what's happening. He's shocked. What's going on? I'm just walking my dog, and all of a sudden, these guys are chasing me. They lock him up, put him in a car on an August day, After they tase him not once, but 3 times, his back is facing them. They tase him with the metallic tasers in his back and his thigh. And as he turns around again, in the same thigh in the front. Jonathan's handcuffed. Of course, ambulance comes then because he's wounded and he's hurt. The ambulance takes him from that scene, which is up near Georgetown, above Georgetown, to the nearest hospital, which is Sibley. And at Sibley, a doctor removes the tasers. They then take Jonathan. And this is the problem. They take him into the Park Police Station and they fingerprint him. And then they take him to Capitol Hill Police where they book him. And they book him for assaults on a police officer and resisting arrest. Not one of the charges has anything to do with what he was doing when he walked through the park. Needless to say, the next morning, after spending the night in jail, wounded and totally flustered, no one has said to him, this is why we're arresting you or why we arrested you. About 10:30, 25 hours later, he gets a piece of paper. You're free to go. No charges are going to be pressed against you. And it's absolutely stunning and inexplicable. And we've learned, quite frankly, that this is not the first time that the Park Police have been involved in arresting African Americans without probable cause. There are other cases in the Maryland and Virginia communities where the Park Police have jurisdictions where this has happened to both Black men and women.
What are y'all seeking in this lawsuit?
Well, we filed the first part of this lawsuit, which is constitutional claims. We're seeking in excess of $1 million, which means that a jury can return anything. We're hoping they'll return in excess of that amount. We also have both constitutional and federal tort claims. The process requires the exhaustion of a process where the federal government reviews the tort claims and then we'll be amending the complaints. In addition to the constitutional violations, false arrest, and use of excessive force, certain tort claims against the United States Park Police in particular. So those claims will be against the United States government.
It is just unreal. Jonathan, sorry you had to actually go through that, but it's the story of so many African Americans where we are expected to somehow just comply with anybody walking up to us, and you didn't know who the hell this person was. They're not showing a badge. You just think it's just some dude in a T-shirt and shorts. We thank both of you for joining us. We certainly keep us updated on what happens in this case.
Sure. Thank you.
Michael, this is the type of stuff that white folks in America do not understand about black folks, what we have to endure when things like this happen. They don't have to face what we do. The guy's minding his business, walking his dogs. Guy walks up to him, white guy, shorts and T-shirt. How I'm doing? I'm out, man. And he gets chased down, arrested. They lie about what happened. And now he's suing. This is the stress that we as black people have to endure just being black in America.
And the good thing for John is he's in good hands with Donald Temple. Donald Temple's a friend and an excellent lawyer, so he's in good hands there. And Roland, what you touched on a second ago, what we've talked about on the show many times, until there's some kind of deterrent for these officers. For example, they're going after $1 million or in excess of $1 million for their case. It seems to me maybe a percentage of that needs to come from the officers personally. Because if money is everybody talks about money is obviously the driving force, both to encourage you, and money should also be the driving force as a deterrent. And until whether it's pensions, whether it's them being sued personally, whatever it is, until police officers have those things to think about before they act, these particular actions are going to continue to happen all across America. I must say I'm glad it wasn't Metropolitan Police Department, which is our local police department. This was a federal agency. the Capitol Police, Park Police, our federal police officers, federal law enforcement. And so it's a shame that it continues to happen. But again, and the problem, Roland, as we've talked about before, is elected officials. It is very difficult to go up against the police unions and say that this is what you want to do by putting their pensions on the table or personal liability, because they don't want to get bad grades from the police unions when they're running for office. And then that's kind of what's happening politically on the ground in these different jurisdictions around the country.
Teresa, is the reality of what it means to be black in this country, and when these things happen, white folks just don't believe us. And again, we have to keep, it's like one day after another. And hell, the brother is lucky to be alive.
He is, and again, we're grateful for his life and the many others who have to go through these type of challenges trying to live every day. But I think this is also, another wake-up call of how important it is for us, Black and brown people, to be in position of law enforcement and, the chiefs. We need to be at the table. We need to be in these positions. And so we can start making some of these determinations on some of these police officers who know that they are protected by their union rep. And that is probably the most unfortunate thing we have about the system right now, is because, they'll probably get desk duty or just, probably, get suspended for a week, and then back to work they go with a full-time pension. And so, again, I've been hammering on some of these laws that need to change, and some of these accountability practices and real transparency that needs to happen with law enforcement. But I think ultimately, again, it just has to happen with, more Black and brown people standing up, to unions, being in the job position, moving up in the ranks, but also keep telling these stories. And hopefully, we can actually get some progress down the line.
Gotta hit them in the pocketbooks. That's the only thing that happens. You gotta hit them in the pocketbooks to get their attention. And all too often, when these things happen, people say, "Oh well, you know what? You really." I think you guys are overstating this. But again, I keep saying, white Americans don't have to deal with this. They don't deal with what we have to deal with on a regular basis, Joe. They simply don't.
No, they don't. And so, now apparently, a brother walking down the street, in Northwest, walking his dog is arousing suspicion. And now, therefore, in order for him to preserve his life, now he's got to act a certain way despite the biases of the individual that's walking toward them. Let's add that individual is actually a member of the police department who's actually supposed to protect and serve him and all of us. And so now he's got preconceived notions cooked into the cake about how he feels about us and how he feels about those things. And so now if we are skirting aside of that, now we're more miraculous than indicative, we're more exception than the rule, and then their hand gets caught in the cookie jar, and maybe they write a check. But let's get at something that allows us to deal with this thing, recognizing it as systemic, recognizing it as something that needs to change broadly, and that this is not an exception or an anomaly. It's very, very difficult, and it's very frustrating. And those of us that have walked back and forth in Northwest or in LA or Century City or take your pick, we're always, looking at these particular things because anything can happen at any time. And now it's our prerogative to make sure that somehow we stay alive. It's just absolutely crazy.
Folks, speaking of staying alive, that did not happen to a black woman in Baytown, Texas. Coming up next, we'll talk with attorney Ben Crump as a case gets underway of a black woman having an episode shot and killed in cold blood by a police officer there. He goes on trial for her death. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. You're watching on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitch. It doesn't matter. Click the like button, the share button. We should be hitting 1,000 likes. As a matter of fact, we should be hitting 1,200, 1,500 likes every single day with the show on YouTube. So hit the button, folks. Same thing for all the platforms. Download the Black Star Network app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. Also, support our Bring the Funk fan club. Check in money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. We'll be right back.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
On the next Get Wealthy, financial therapy, what it is and why it may be exactly what you need.
So when you think about financial therapy, what we're talking about is how do we learn to live with our money in a way that is congruent with our values, that we understand our emotions about money, we understand our beliefs and our behaviors.
That's right here, only on Black Star Network.
When we invest in ourselves, our glow, our vision, our vibe, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Hi, I'm Kim Burrell.
Hi, I'm Carl Payne.
Hey, everybody, this is Sherry Shepherd. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Devontae Thompson was last seen in Narragansett, Rhode Island on June 19th. The 17-year-old is 5 feet 8 inches tall, weighs 170 pounds, with black hair and brown eyes. Anyone with information about Devontae should call the Narragansett, Rhode Island Police Department at 401-789-1091, 401-789-1091. Folks, it's been more than 3 years since a black Texas grandmother suffered a mental health crisis when she was gunned down 8 times by a Texas police officer. A jury is going to decide if former Baytown police officer Juan Manuel de la Cruz is guilty of first-degree aggravated assault by a public servant. The incident was caught on video, and it took place in an apartment parking lot in May of 2019. Joining us right now is the attorney for the Pamela Turner family, Ben Crump. Ben, glad to have you on the show. We were there in Baytown covering a rally you and others held last year to bring attention to this case. My goodness, it took 3 years for this to get to a courtroom?
Yeah, Roland, and thank God for your voice and others, because I think had we not been fighting in the court of public opinion the case of the tragic killing, execution of this unarmed black woman, never would have made it to court. So I can never say thank you enough, Roland Martin. And the video should have been enough. You look at this video and there's no way to justify this police officer shooting at this black woman 8 times while she's on her back and he's on his feet and she's saying, "I'm pregnant."
Now explain the charge, because I'm sure if somebody watching right now, somebody's saying, why in the world weren't they charged with murder? Why wasn't he charged with murder?
You know, the murder, you would have to prove intent. His defense is, even though he assaulted and battered this black woman who was having mental health issues, she was just out picking up paper as she did most times. And he comes up and he engages her, he attacks her. She says, leave me alone. They start a struggle. She's trying to pull away from her. He's trying to pull her somewhere. And then he takes out his taser and he tases her. And when you're in that close proximity and somebody tases you, Roland Martin, you reach for the taser. It's a natural instinct. And so they struggled, went to the ground. She took the taser. He got up on his feet while she was still on the ground. And then he shot at her 8 times, hitting her 3 times, Roland Martin, 1 in the face, 1 in her chest, and 1 in her stomach, killing her. And the tragedy is they accept the defense that, well, we're not going to charge him with murder because he was just reacting to his life being in danger. Well, his life wasn't in danger, Roland, because we have experts that say there was no way she could have re-engaged that taser. And had he followed his training, he would have knew, unless she had a clip that only he had, could she re-engage that taser.
You know, I think about the case in Grand Rapids, Michigan, where brother gets pulled over, traffic violation, runs away. Cop is trying to accost him, and his way of calming the situation down is to shoot him in the back of his head. I mean, this is how they treat us. Yet we've seen numerous examples of white folks, yelling and cussing and screaming, and it's amazing about the level of restraint they have from pulling their gun out.
Yeah, it is quite remarkable. And you're speaking of Patrick Loyola case in Grand Rapids, again, where you have the police pull a taser in close proximity, which is against the policies. And so then they create what they call a life or death situation, and then they shoot us and try to say it's justified. But when you think about January 6th and all this other stuff with the Oath Keepers that are in the news today, Roland, they never, ever use deadly force on them, especially in the manner that they so easily use it on black people. And that's why, brother, I'm waiting for White Fear. I ordered my book on Amazon because for whatever reason, the courts, the state attorneys, everybody, they buy into this white fear, whether it's the browning of America or they try to say, well, because the color of your skin, we fear you so much.
Yep, that's exactly what it is. Now, so the trial begins this week. Are they right now? They're going through jury selection?
Yep, they have selected a jury today. They're going to be off tomorrow for the Jewish holiday, and then the trial starts on Thursday. And this is the big deal, Roland. If the jury convicts this police officer based on the atrocities that we saw on that cell phone video, it will mark the first time in American history that a jury has convicted a police officer for killing a black woman.
That right there is significant. Ben, we appreciate you, again, staying on the case, representing this family, trying to bring justice. And for the people out there, and it being it happens all the time, you and I talk about this all the time. I hear these people say, Ben Crump never wins these cases. You can't prosecute the officer. That's the job of the district attorney. Your job is to represent the family. And all of the attention, the rally, and all of those different things, all of that is what led to this. That's what also your job is to raise the attention so people are aware of cases like this and they simply aren't swept under the rug.
100%, Roland Martin. We never lose, actually. We represent the civil cases, and in all our cases, we've either got a recovery or we got a verdict. Right now, it's about holding police accountable in criminal court so it would be a deterrent. If they have to go to prison, maybe, just maybe, they'll think twice before they shoot first and ask questions later. And thank you for clarifying that, Roland. There's a lot of ignorant people who don't know the basic law that only the prosecutor, only the government can prosecute you and take away your liberty, not a private citizen.
All right. Attorney Ben Crump, we surely appreciate it. Thank you so very much for joining us from Texas.
Yes, sir. I can't wait to read I got White Fear ordered on Amazon. I cannot wait, Roland Martin.
I appreciate it. That's why I'm here in New York doing media stuff as we speak. Ben, thanks a lot.
God bless, Roland. We'll keep you updated on Pam Turner. Justice for Pam.
Thanks a lot. Justice for Pam Turner, absolutely. All right, folks, I got to go to a break. We come back. Let me be real clear. I don't give a damn about Kanye West. So I'm not going to waste time talking about this punk and that idiot Candace Owens wearing a White Lives Matter shirt. What I am going to talk about is his attacks on Black Lives Matter. We'll discuss that next with Melina Abdullah, who leads the Black Lives Matter grassroots group on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Folks, don't forget, download our app, Black Star Network app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. Support our Bring the Funk fan club. We need 2,000 of our fans contributing at least $50 this month. Our goal is to get $50 from $20,000 for the year. Folks, here's the deal. That raises $1 million for us to do the work that we are doing, for us to be able to broadcast and cover the stories. Look, let me tell you something. When I went down to Baytown, Texas, no one paid us to go down there. And so it was flights, it was transportation, it was the crew. And so we live streamed that particular rally. You can watch that on our YouTube channel or on the Black Star Network app. But these things cost money when we have to go cover these stories. We don't have sponsors who are sending us to these places. And so your contributions absolutely matter. And so please send your checks and money orders to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. We'll be right back.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen shooting.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
When we invest in ourselves, we're investing in what's next for all of us. Growing, creating, making moves that move us all forward. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Hello, I'm Bishop T.D. Jakes.
How y'all doing? It's your favorite funny girl, Amanda Seals.
Hi, I'm Anthony Brown from Anthony Brown and Group Therapy.
What up, Lana Well, and you are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
All right, folks. Asshole himself, Kanye West, showed his true colors today with his latest stunt dealing with White Lives Matter. I'm not wasting my time talking about that, but it was his attack on Black Lives Matter that I do want to focus on. He posted a message on social media where he was critical. Let me say it again. He was critical of this Black Lives Matter, and he blasted them, y'all, in his post. This is what he actually posted. And again, he's who he is. He posted, "Everyone knows that Black Lives Matter was a scam. Now it's over. You're welcome." That's what he posted. Well, Kanye being Kanye, if you still listen to his music and follow him, well, shame on you. Joining us right now is Dr. Melina Abdullah, the director of the Black Lives Matter grassroots movement. Melina, glad to have you here. You know, it's interesting. I did a radio interview, Melina, and a reporter asked me about this issue. I told the reporter I don't give a damn about Kanye West. He has no value to me whatsoever. And she says, well, you know, but he has power. I said, no, he doesn't. I said, he might influence folks to buy his clothes. I said, but frankly, the average person, the average black person, I can't afford his damn clothes and don't want those ugly-ass clothes. But the thing that we're seeing here, again, this constant attack on Black Lives Matter. I've had reporters tell me, Patrice McCullers was misappropriating funds. I said, I haven't seen evidence of that. I've seen the allegations. I have not seen where audit was done. They continue to attack Black Lives Matter, saying, they were stealing and they were doing these different things. Now you have Kanye talking about that it's a scam. Just your initial thoughts on this latest attack on Black Lives Matter and the work that you do.
Sure. I mean, I don't know what that stunt was yesterday. I know that Kanye West has not been involved in Black Liberation Movement or Black Lives Matter, even though he's been invited to the table and to help. And he hasn't been. And so we're going to continue to do the work. It's not over. Despite what Kanye West is saying, it's not over. We're just coming back from Tampa, Florida, where we had a huge victory, won the largest cash award of anybody who was killed by police in the name of Andrew Joseph III. We're working to end qualified immunity. We're continuing to do work in the streets in terms of policy and in terms of education. And so one of the things that we offered is maybe Kanye is just woefully ignorant. And so I did invite him to my class and said, you're welcome to learn about race, racism, and why we say Black Lives Matter and what it means. And so that invitation still stands. And that is what it is. We're not going to let Kanye West slow us down with this really affront to not only what we do in the streets, but an affront to the people who have lost loved ones, whose loved ones have been stolen by police violence.
You know, the reporter asked me, would I sit down and meet with Kanye? And if I did, what would I say? I said, first of all, I wouldn't. I said, I'm not wasting my time. I said, he needs to spend more time with his therapist and his doctor than having a conversation with me. I said, I see absolutely no value of listening to someone like him. And I think what happens is, I think people play into his narcissism by continuously talking about him. That's why my focus is the consistent attacks on Black Lives Matter. Because, and here's the piece, if people keep saying that BLM is so irrelevant, then why do they keep focusing on you?
That's right. I mean, they wouldn't be attacking us or wearing those terrible shirts if Black Lives Matter wasn't moving the needle, wasn't doing important work. The only reason that they're doing that is because we are doing important work. We are doing the work that needs to be done, that is our sacred duty to move us towards greater freedom and liberation for our folks. And so we're still here. We're still in the streets. We're still doing work. And I think that you're right. A testament to that is the attacks on us. They wouldn't be trying so hard to kill us off if we weren't doing effective work.
You talked about the case out of Florida. What is next? What are y'all working on? And how are you redefining the mission, if you will, or what I call Black Lives Matter Grassroots 2.0?
Sure. So the work out of Florida was tremendous. It was led by the only family-led chapter of Black Lives Matter out of Tampa, Florida. So Andrew and Deanna Hardy-Joseph lead Black Lives Matter Grassroots Florida. We had dozens and dozens of organizers there for a couple of weeks for the entire trial. We were able to really demonstrate the ways in which law enforcement dehumanize and adultify our children, and again got a jury with no Black people on it to see Andrew Joseph III, a 14-year-old boy who was simply attending student day at the Florida State Fair, when he was criminalized, abducted, and left on the side of the road along with 98 other exclusively Black children. They were left there to fend for themselves in the dark, in the rain, and Andrew Joseph, in the midst of that, was hit and killed by a white motorist who was never investigated. That jury found that Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office was absolutely responsible for Andrew's death and awarded his parents $15 million, the largest award for any police-involved death in Florida state history. Well, his parents say what we say, that is a step forward in Andrew Joseph's name, but we want to keep moving, and we want to end qualified immunity, the unjust legal doctrine that shields police from accountability. And so we're working to get Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley's bill passed, the End Qualified Immunity Act. We're working to end the power of police associations that continue to pilfer the public purse. We just saw the day after the Andrew Joseph verdict, we saw as Democrats and Republicans alike put more money in policing instead of more resources into accountability and the things that actually make communities safe. So we're working to end police associations, and we're moving into a period that we call Black Xmas, where we want to understand the relationship between white supremacy and rampant predatory capitalism, as Julianne Malveaux calls it, and be deliberate with our dollars. And instead of just spending away with corporations that don't care about us and are often responsible for our deaths, we're encouraging everybody to build Black, buy Black, and bank Black, and they can visit blackxmas.org for more on that.
Panel, any questions for Melina? Let me first start with Teresa Lundy.
Hi, thank you so much for your fight. As it obviously still continues, what is something that, us out in social media can do to kind of help with the cause? I feel like, if there are more voices on social media that is actively, working with you and an organization to make sure the truth is out there, is that something that, you guys are able to help assist us with?
Yes, we absolutely need everybody's help. So as has been shared here and other places, we do have an issue in trying to wrestle back our social media platforms, the platforms that were built off of the backs of organizers. And so we have a new platform that we need help amplifying, BLM Grassroots. BLM Grassroots is Black Lives Matter, where the chapters were the people who've always been on the ground since the birth and ushered in the birth of Black Lives Matter in 2013. And so we need your help amplifying by going to BLM Grassroots and following their BLM Grassroots, which is all the work that we do on the ground globally.
Joe?
At the risk of asking a very simple question, let's do a 101 on why we say Black Lives Matter. So many people get that wrong. They start in the middle of the story. They say, well, white lives matter too. Well, the problem is that as it pertains to the execution of the laws and the things that have happened, we're coming from a tradition nationally where Black lives have not been mattering. And so we say Black Lives Matter, not at the risk of or in lieu of other lives. But what would you say to the 101 person who perhaps is well-intentioned, but needs that explanation of why we say Black Lives Matter?
So I think you just said it. right? That white folks in this country and in this world have never been targeted for demise. Black people have. This world has been set up as a racial hierarchy with white people on top and Black people on the bottom. And if you look at virtually every economic, social, and political measure, Black people have been placed on the bottom. We are, the most incarcerated, not because we commit more crimes, because the criminal system of injustice was set up to produce those outcomes. We have the lowest rates of home ownership because of things like unjust practices by banks and by mortgage lenders. We have the highest rates of mother and infant mortality because of injustices in the healthcare system, because of institutions which were created to profit from us, to exploit us, and to enrich others. And so we have to say Black Lives Matter because Black lives are the ones that are under attack. And when we stave off these attacks, when Black people matter, when Black people are no longer bound by these chains of oppression, we get free, but so does everyone else.
Michael.
But before I get to the BLM issue, Roland, I want to thank you for having Mr. Crump on, my fraternity brother, a proud Omega man. Very smart of you to have somebody like that on. Now and I know you don't.
You better go and ask your question before you get embarrassed. But go on ahead.
Did you ever wonder? And this certainly happened, sometimes successfully, sometimes not successfully, with some of the marches in the '60s, that they had some folks that were designed to be there to keep people from destroying businesses. Because I'm sure you get frustrated by the stories that come out sometimes after your protest rallies, where they really focus on knuckleheads that are, obviously looting businesses. Have you ever tried to do that, to have people that are really just designed to keep people from destroying businesses?
So the priority for Black Lives Matter is to end state-sanctioned violence against Black people. And I know that there are media tactics used to divert the gaze away from what the real issue is. So they want to focus on whether or not a Starbucks window was broken. Let's say that we are focused on Black life. We're not focused on the interests of white property owners. That is a tactic, a diversionary tactic. And so we want to lift up what it is our focus is, right? Over 1,000 people are killed at the hands of police violence each year, and that's not including those who are killed on the inside of our jails and prisons. And so that's where we're keeping our focus. We're trying to make sure that people stay in the streets. And as you know, there are very, very few instances where Black people are actually engaging in some of the things that we're accused of. Most of us are doing righteous work that lifts up the names that we have to constantly lift up, that says names like Jalen Walker and Riddell Jones and Ryan Twyman. Most of us are doing righteous work, and we want to keep people focused on that righteous work.
Very good. Keep up the good work.
Thank you so much.
All right, Melina Abdullah, we certainly appreciate it. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, brother.
All right, folks, got to go to a break. We come back. Herschel Walker, boy, he had a rough night last night. His son put him on blast after the Daily Beast reported that he paid for an abortion for a former girlfriend. Herschel denies it, but Republicans are scared that this is going to scare off conservative white women. We'll break it down with my panel next on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. YouTube, hit that like button, folks. Let's get to 1,500 likes. More than 2,000 of y'all watching right now. All you got to do is hit the like button and keep commenting. Do the same thing on Facebook, on the Black Star Network app, on all the platforms. Hit the like button, hit the share button, and pass the word. Folks need to be watching this show to learn the issues of the day. I'll be right back.
When we invest in ourselves, our glow, our vision, our vibe. We all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
We're all impacted by the culture, whether we know it or not. From politics to music and entertainment, it's a huge part of our lives, and we're going to talk about it every day right here on The Culture with me, Faraji Muhammad, only on the Black Star Network.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
This is Diala Riddle.
What's up, y'all? I'm Will Packer.
I'm Chrisette Michelle.
Hi, I'm Chaley Rose, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Well, things got a little testy last night in Georgia and on social media when the Daily Beast reported that Herschel Walker paid for the abortion of a girlfriend in 2009. He was on Fox News, denied it actually took place. It set off a firestorm. And who actually was at the center of that bonfire? His son, Christian Walker. He, of course, has been trashing Democrats and others for a long, long time, defending his father, supporting his run, defending Donald Trump. Well, it looked like Christian had enough of enough, and man, he sent out these tweets blasting Herschel Walker last night, saying that the entire family told him not to run, that all these things were going to come out, that he was sick of him as well. Herschel then puts out a tweet where he said that how he loved his son. I tweeted back which one, because even his son said, "Oh, look, how many all new kids popping up every other week during this election." Well, today, Christian Walker, after last night's controversy, he put out a scathing video attacking his dad again. Watch.
I stayed silent as the atrocities committed against my mom were downplayed. I stayed silent when it came out that my father, Herschel Walker, had all these random kids across the country, none of whom he raised. And you know my favorite issue to talk about is father absence. Surprise, because it affected me. That's why I talk about it all the time, because it affected me. Family values, people. He has 4 kids, 4 different women, wasn't in the house raising one of them. He was out having sex with other women. Do you care about family values? I was silent, lie after lie after lie. The abortion card drops yesterday. It's literally his handwriting in the card. They say they have receipts, whatever. He gets on Twitter. He lies about it. Okay, I'm done. Done. Everything has been a lie. And so for the right to say I'm being suspicious for saying, hey, I'm done with the lies, when you all have been calling me saying, is this true about your dad? Gosh, we're not going to win Georgia, this candidate, all that's been you. You have no idea what I've been through in my life. You have no idea what me and my mom have survived. We could have ended this on day one. We haven't. I haven't told any stories. I'm just saying, don't lie. Don't lie on my mom. Don't lie on me. Don't lie on the lives you've destroyed and act like you're some moral family man. Y'all should care about that, conservatives. And then for people on the left to act as though I'm responsible for all of the things that he has done. I've talked about father absence. I've talked all these issues because they've been close to me, because they matter to me, because I went through it. That's why I've talked about it. So when you say, well, talk about your dad, but I'm saying this behavior is atrocious. Don't come for me. You don't have to like my politics. You don't have to like me. You don't have to. I'm just saying I'm done with the lies. We were told at the beginning of this he was going to get ahead of his past, hold himself accountable, all of these different things, and that would have been fine. Go ahead. He didn't do any of that. Everything's been a lie. Everything's been downplayed. Everything's been cutting corners. The whole thing. And whose expense is that at? Me, my mom, as we're chased down by the media, we're terrorized, all these different things. People are questioning my authenticity. I'm done. Don't lie. Don't put this on me. This is a candidate issue, not a me issue. I wouldn't have spoken out if there weren't all these lies every day.
Well, now let's go to my panel. Michael, Teresa, and Joe. Michael, I must say, if you're a Republican, they're trying to put a good face. They came out, Senator Rick Scott the Republican Senatorial Campaign Committee, they're saying full steam ahead. You got folks like Matt Schlapp all talking about how, we have imperfect people, imperfect candidates, and blah, 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 blaming the Democrats, saying this is all on them. This is not what you want to see happen to your candidate 1 month before the election, Michael.
Of course not, absolutely not. But I think there are some concerns that we have that it seems that there may be only a handful of states where a candidate like Herschel Walker could run in and even be close in the polls. Georgia happens to be one of those states. But the concern is, if we all remember in 2016 during the Access Hollywood tape when that dropped on Donald Trump, a lot of folks obviously thought, his candidacy was over. Forget about it. He might as well just drop out. But it didn't matter. These voters, I guess they weren't MAGA voters yet in 2016. They obviously evolved into that are now supporting Mr. Walker, may not care. Because as long as it's not a Democrat in that seat, that's good enough. And so that's the concern. So I don't want folks in Georgia to think for a second that, now I don't need to go to the polls. You absolutely need to go to the polls. You need to bring a friend, a family member. Please don't go to the polls by yourself. Take it seriously. Take it like Senator Warnock is losing. And in some polls, he actually is. Most of the polls, I understand, is either tied or he's ahead by a little bit. But please don't take this news as, okay, now and we don't have to worry about it. We still do. Get out and vote in Georgia.
Thing here, Eric Erickson is a prominent conservative in Georgia. He was tweeting last night, Joe, where he said he's heard from conservative women who are already bothered by a vicious and truthful ad from the Warnock campaign talking about Herschel Walker, the allegations of spousal abuse against his ex-wife. He said this here does not make it easier for them to cast a ballot for Herschel.
Yeah, and that's an interesting thing, right? Because, perhaps Michael's point is very valid, but hopefully, Herschel, he's a bad candidate. He's not particularly smart. The elevator doesn't go all the way to the top, and he's a hypocrite on top of that. But he's their hypocrite. And if, however, perhaps they don't give him the deference that they give white candidates that are hypocrites, that aren't particularly good candidates, and that aren't particularly smart, perhaps the current senator, Reverend Warnock, can get over and be okay. And so, it may be that some of these women are a little less likely to vote for Herschel Walker than they would on some other candidate with some imperfections. We're not so sure of that because the fact of the matter, given how many deficits he actually has and all the problems he has, when things go on in the dark, they come out in the light, particularly when you're running for office. You got to know how you're going to spend these things. Take responsibility at the beginning. Hey, listen, I've done some things over the last X number of years. He didn't do any of that, right? And in fact, that's what his son says, who I feel sorry for because he's hurting, but that's a separate family thing. But even now, they may forgive him. But the fact that he's competing at all, to Michael's point, should make us know we're still in a very dangerous moment. There's nothing like, we saw it, frankly, with our president, with the 45th president, having someone that really doesn't know how to work the wheels and just is going negative. They don't know what to do. They don't know where to be. They don't know where to stand. And Herschel Walker would be one of those. The fact that he's competing at all should make us all have caution and give us all the urgency in the world to go to the polls as if white women, as if Republicans will do what they often do, is that they get power and argue about it later. This would not be the first terrible candidate that they voted for, so I wouldn't put it past them. And we've got a great candidate, and we've got to do everything we need to do to keep him in office.
And Teresa, the Walker campaign is saying that they had a record fundraising night after last night's story. They are trying to raise money off of it. But it's certainly, keep in mind, Biden won the state by 11,000 votes. And the reality is every vote matters. And so I don't care what they say, you do not want this to be the story, especially when it's the son of the candidate who is destroying him as not being a family man, as not being a virtuous man, as not being a godly man, which is frankly the only platform Herschel can even remember.
The one benefit that the Republicans are doing are actually raising money, because there are so many challenges that is happening right now with the character of this candidate that it's going to make it very hard for people to want to vote for this guy. I mean, it's a very different scenario when we're looking at Senator Warnock. And he is the type of, senator who is what the conservatives are looking for, except his policies are Democratic. And so, when we have someone, again, they just wanted to find, again, conservatives wanted to find an African-American man to put up, and they was hoping that he was without flaw. But this is what you have, and this is what you're going to get. So I'm glad that they are raising a ton of money, because that's what they're going to need if they decide, or they can't get out the race now, but if they want to have an actual fighting chance.
All right, then. All right, folks, Thursday I'm going to be in Georgia on the ground moderating a town hall in Georgia dealing with the issues of the day. Can't wait to tell you more about that. So I'll be there Thursday. Friday, I'm in Houston with the folks with Black Voters Matter broadcasting from their rally as well. So we'll certainly have more details on that tomorrow, as well as on our social media accounts as well. Got to go to a break. We come back. Our marketplace segment. We'll talk with two brothers who are in business dealing with natural products. We'll tell you exactly what they are. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Download the Black Star Network app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One. Be sure to give to our Bring the Funk fan club. You can send chicken money orders to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered. PayPal's R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. We'll be right back. Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home. You dig?
Hey, yo, Peace World, what's going on? It's the Love King of R&B, Raheem Devon.
Hey, I'm Cupid, the maker of the Cupid Shuffle and the Wham Dance.
What's going on? This is Tobias Trevelyan. And if you're ready, you are listening to and you are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
All right, folks, influenced by obesity, diabetes, and heart disease in their own families, Kareem Cook and Claude Tellis found a way to address this issue by creating a product that they said can help underserved communities. It is called Naturade. Is a plant-based product. Protein shake. Claude and Kareem join me now from Los Angeles, California. Glad to have you on the show. Gentlemen, how are you doing?
Doing well. Thank you for having us. Thank you for having us.
So this is obviously a very competitive market. Protein shakes have been hugely popular. How have you been able to set yourself apart in the marketplace?
Okay. Well, first of all, Claude and I, the vision and mission of our company is different than other companies, right? So we sell a protein. There's protein in our shake, but our shake is designed to help you lose weight by giving you a clean, plant-based product that has 21 vitamins and minerals, dietary fiber, and omega. It's a complete meal. And our plan is to try and get people to lose a little bit of weight so that the 100 million people in this country who are pre-diabetic can go from pre-diabetic to health. And we know that diabetes is a crisis that affects the country. There are 30 million people who have diabetes. However, we know that the African-American community is disproportionately affected by this disease. And Claude and I were moved to do something about it when we saw the majority of the people in our families succumbing to diabetes early on in their lives.
And talk about that when you say what you saw in your family, and what were those conversations like?
Yeah, so in my family's from Louisiana, and basically all of us grow up on on that kind of a diet where you're eating fried foods, and you're not really kind of looking at the outcomes that your eating has. And so I think a big part of what we're trying to do is educate the community in terms of how to eat clean, and also helping us link like how we eat to those outcomes. And so relative to our product, what we're trying to focus folks on is that, hey, look, if you're eating, a bacon egg biscuit from McDonald's, or eating a bagel or a donut, figure out ways to substitute that. And our product is taken as a smoothie with protein powder. You can mix in blueberries, strawberries, raspberries. It's a great tasting option. And so we want to get people focused on that they're great tasting substitutes to high fat and high sugar options.
And one of the things that that I think is interesting, again, when you talk about it, I've tried some plant-based products, and a lot of them suck. So I actually tried your product, and I'm gonna pull up a second. So Avery Woodley, who we had on the show last week, she actually posted about your product on her Instagram, and she says, "Roland, you gotta try it." And I did. But it's so funny. I made the mistake because my previous protein shakes, it was 1 scoop. And then, of course, yours was 2 scoops. And I was like, well, it actually tastes a little bit thin. Then, of course, I realized it was 2 scoops. But the taste is a lot better. And I can tell you, matter of fact, I travel with my protein shaker, and I have several days worth of product with me, and so in terms of putting it together, was that also something that you wanted to ensure that your taste, that it does taste good, and it's not like a lot of other vegan products where you kind of like, let me just sort of just quickly swallow it so I can tolerate it?
Yeah. So because of who we're talking to, right? We are sold in Whole Foods as well as Target as well as Costco. However, the majority of people that go into Whole Foods, they're primarily a consumer that knows what they want. They know they want to be healthy. They don't care about if it tastes like sand. But we're talking to people who, we're asking people to put down the bacon cheeseburger for a night or the grape soda, and it better taste good if you're asking people to do, something on that level. And so we designed it to be still low glycemic. So if you're diabetic, you can take it. However, we wanted to, we have like 3 to 4 brands of organic cane sugar, as well as a little stevia. And we were able to find a stevia that didn't have an aftertaste, just a little bit of it, so that we can keep it low glycemic. And we designed it for the health outcomes. Now, there are products that you're talking about that definitely taste like sand, right? But those companies, and kudos to them. Their mission is to, maybe do something about environmental crises or animal rights, but we're really trying to save people's lives. And so we're addressing the health. And so we want it to taste good so that you continue to do it.
Yeah, we like to say that we're plant-based for meat eaters. So we know that taste is critical, and the people who we're, talking to, like Kareem said, we're in Costco, We also do really well on Amazon. And if you go and look at our ratings, we're a 4.5 out of 5 on Amazon because our taste is so good, is that we're hitting that opportunity gap, which we know are people in our families and people of color. So we want to make sure that it's easy for all of us to make that transition.
All right. We're going to do questions from our panel. Let me first start with Joe.
Gentlemen, I really appreciate this product on a lot of levels because, among other things, my wife is vegan, and she wants to see me get closer to being vegan. Love conquers all. I'm not all the way over there, but I love the idea that this is actually something that tastes good. So here's my question. Do you foresee, if there's success with this product, you going into other vegan products? Because I would say that there's a lot of vegan stuff out there that could taste better. Are there other fronts in the war?
Yeah, so right now we're working on a ready to drink, which is a liquid product. So you can just take it, open up a cap and drink it. We're working on different variations of this product, as well as we're trying to really make it easily distributed to the people who need the most. We're trying to get to the food deserts. We're trying to have an affordable price that everyone could afford. And so we are constantly, in the lab creating, and we have 2 new products that we'll be launching probably Q2 next year.
Great. Fantastic. Thanks.
Teresa?
Hey guys, thank you so much for this product. I have a few friends that are vegan. One of them I just texted and I said, hey, what's a question for these guys? So one, please reiterate what your product name is, and if you have a website. And another thing is, are you guys actually, I know you guys are e-commerce, but are you looking to do any storefront?
Yeah, so these are the products. So this is the product that's in Costco. And we have an amazing story about our partnership with Costco. So we're one of a few Black-owned companies in Costco, and it's a major, major achievement. This is the product that Roland is talking about. Our mutual friend Avery, sent him this product, and it's called Vegan Smart. And she just found us and just loved us, and just on the strength of wanting to support us, has done that. And then this product is a protein shake that's in Target, and you'll recognize it because it says Naturade. On the top, it says, Black-owned company. And so these are our top SKUs, and you can also find us on Amazon. So hopefully that answers your question.
It did. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Michael.
Gentlemen, fellas, congratulations, and we're so proud, and keep up the good work. Well, did you mention and I have a lot of vegans around me too, and a lot of them don't even go in stores. They just do everything online. So I'm sorry, if you mentioned it to Teresa, I may have missed it. What's the website again?
Our website is naturade.com if you want to learn about us. But the Costco product is not there. It's on Costco.com. And the other products are on Amazon. And quite frankly, you should come to naturade.com, learn about us, see our interviews. But if you go on Amazon, you'll get a better price. And if you go to Costco.com, here's something that people don't know. You actually don't need a Costco membership to order on Costco.com. And they deliver in 2 days.
And Roland had mentioned... sorry, Roland, go ahead.
No, Michael, Michael, go ahead.
Super quick. What do you mix? What is yours mixed with? Is it water or is it something else? Is it a milk? Or what can you mix it with?
Well, I'll jump in real quickly on that. So our products are designed so that they taste good enough just to mix with water. And so a lot of people like to use a shaker bottle and maybe put some ice in the shaker bottle because our product tastes a little bit better when cold, and just kind of shake it up and just water. But then other folks will like to put almond milk or some other type of plant-based almond milk. And my personal favorite, which we call the classic, is and this is how we demo on Costco, particularly in Los Angeles and in San Diego regions. But we'll put cold blueberries, strawberries, and raspberries into a product and blend it all up. And because those berries are low glycemic and really approved for pre-diabetics, it tastes amazing. It's still low cal. And, your first experience with our product is that it tastes great.
Cool. Thank you, guys.
Well, I'll tell you this here, guys. I'll tell you this here. Y'all might want to really sign Avery as a brand ambassador because, again, look, I am not. Look, I told you. Look. I don't do vegan. That ain't me. I'm straight from Texas. And so when she posted on her Instagram account, I saw it and I was like, I was like, yo, okay, seriously? She's like, no, seriously. She said, my kids actually love the product as well. So I ordered one. I was like, I'm going to give the brothers a shot. And then I ran into you at the Grand Boulay in the Bahamas, and I said, hey, let's get you on the show. So yeah, y'all, look, she's always posted about it. So y'all might want to sign her as a brand ambassador because she's been selling a whole lot of product for y'all.
Oh yeah, absolutely. She's amazing. And Roland, I just want you to know
that's how y'all got on the show. I'm just letting y'all know.
Oh yeah. Look. Avery's an angel. I mean, I never asked her to do anything that she's done. It's just been on the strength. But I also want to tell you that 80% of our consumers are not vegan. 80% of our consumers eat meat. So this is just a way to be healthy. It just happens to be plant-based. And that's really led to the success. And that was intentional.
Absolutely. And I'll finish by saying that.
All right, well, look. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to finish and say that our Naturade product is in Costco in LA and San Diego, Arizona, Colorado, New Mexico, and we're trying to go nationwide. And when you go into Costco, it'll say Naturade plant-based. So we're really moving that narrative from a vegan smart vegan conversation to more of a Naturade conversation. So inviting, as Kareem said, the 80% of the people that aren't plant-based, they're meat eaters, is plant-based for meat eaters.
All right, then. Well, look, I can't wait till she see the segment. So y'all might be want to give her a phone call. So if I start seeing her with Naturade shirts and stuff like that, I know y'all cut a deal. So again, so I appreciate her for posting on her page. And I since ordered a couple of cans. Like I said, I literally have it in my suitcase. And so I'm not. And folks out there, look, and a check has not been cut to me. But y'all know I do taste stuff. And if I ain't like it, they wouldn't be sitting on the show right now. So y'all know that. And so, gentlemen, I appreciate it. Thanks a bunch, and good luck.
Thank you.
All right. That is it for us, folks. Michael, Joe, Teresa, thank you so very much. I appreciate y'all joining us on the show. Folks, please support us in what we do by downloading the Black Star Network app, available on all platforms: Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. So your check and money orders at P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered. PayPal's R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. And of course, folks, you can catch me tomorrow morning on The Breakfast Club. You can also check me out on Sway. And I'll be doing a lot of Sirius XM radio show interviews tomorrow for my book, White Fear, The Brown of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Mind. Get your copy today. Available on all bookstores, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, Target. Also order from your favorite black bookstore. You can also download the on Audible as well. Folks, that is it. I got a busy day tomorrow. I'm going to sleep. I'll see y'all tomorrow live from New York City. Holla!